Chapter 8. 181 is NSFW. This is a brief summary of what happens. After a long night at the club, the group finally went home, exhausted but happy. They arrived at their apartment, ready to get some much-needed rest. "I'm going to go change," Bjorn said, heading to his room. The girls giggled and teased him good-naturedly as he left. Once alone, they discussed their plans for the next day. "We don't have any appointments tomorrow, so we can sleep in and relax," Irma noted. "That's good, because I am wiped out from all that dancing," Lil said with a yawn. "I should probably check in with my mom at some point. Let her know I'm doing okay," Holly added. "Sounds like a plan," Vera agreed. "But first, I vote we all take nice long showers and get cleaned up before bed." The others readily agreed. When Bjorn emerged a short while later, now dressed comfortably for bed, the girls were taking turns in the bathroom, washing up and winding down from the exciting night out. Soon they were all clean, dry, and ready to get some shut-eye. "Sweet dreams, everyone," Salas said as they traded goodnights and headed to their respective rooms. It had been an amazing night of bonding and fun for the close-knit group of friends. Exhausted but content, they drifted off to sleep, eager to see what new adventures tomorrow would bring. Chapter 8. 182. Antlers, Assumptions, and Artillery. Waking up after a wild night with your man and galpals usually was with more grace. Shaking off the telltale feeling of null? What had happened? The axiom is still somewhat scrambled as Holly rises up and she cracks her back somewhat painfully. There is darkness and silence, and the shifting of metal over cloth alerts her, and then a light flicks on. She winces away from it, and beside it is Bjorn. "Awake?" he asks her. "Yes," she says, and she looks around. Vera, Salas, Lils, and Irma are all on their sides to allow them to breathe easily. "Another null effect? It kicked off a couple minutes ago. I had to make sure you're all right," Bjorn says in the otherwise dark room. The downside to a reinforced safe room for a home is that there's nothing in the way of natural light. "I should have felt it earlier. Considering I've used enough axiom to wear you down, that I feel like I've fallen down and then back up a flight upstairs, I'll take that as a compliment," Bjorn remarks as he slowly cracks his neck, loudly enough that it sounds more like he's prepping a gun to fire. Well that," Holly begins as the axiom settles further and the lights start flickering on. "Oh, good. I'm going to recommend some tri-tight lining in the walls of the superstructure. This is annoying," Bjorn notes as the girls start to breathe easier. He feels his remaining exhaustion sweep away as both he and Holly just take a minute to be quiet. "But first, what about breakfast? I'll get it started while you work on waking up the girls." "Oh sure, leave me the hard job," Holly jokes, and he snorts as he turns off his little flashlight and holsters the pistol he had drawn while he had stood guard in the darkness. With the axiom down, he had gone defensive. It doesn't take too long for things to start. Breakfast is nice and easy, oats with honey and ground nuts. Next to it was a series of sunny side-up eggs and a fair amount of buttered toast. Most of the girls were herbivores, so he can't just fry up a pound of bacon, but the eggs are plenty welcome by everyone. Holly needs it all for the sheer muscle on her, and Lirac in general needed more protein than their herbivorous diets would normally hint at. "Axiom or not, I'm calling shenanigans. We worked you over like mobsters you owe money to," Irma blurts out when she staggers out of the bedroom and sees the mounds of food he had already prepared. Holly sucks on her teeth as something flashes behind her eyes, and the smell of copper-based blood fills her snout. Irma turns to look at her, and Rabbi's reflexes, coupled with a business-oriented mind, fits things together fast. "I am so sorry," she apologizes. "It makes so much sense now. There's so much corruption on Centrus that it's..." Bjorn puts a finger to his lips, and she nods after closing her mouth with a click. He takes a breath and quickly thinks of the best way to say this. "I don't need to tell you to keep this to yourself, do I?" "No." "Good. Holly's been through more than enough. Let the pain of the past rot away and fade, not to mention their security to think of." "Right, of course. I'm sorry," Irma says. "Sorry for what? What happened?" Vera asks as she exits the bathroom ahead of the other Lirac. "Nothing to be worried about. Bjorn calls over with a cheery smile pasted on, and Holly is taking deep, cleansing breaths as she counts backwards in her head. Centering herself in the here and now with the smell of oats and honey and toast and eggs. Not a drop of blood in any of it. She runs her hands through her hair and feeling nothing like blood on her hair or fur or dripping from her antlers, she calms down. She is Holly Clatterhoofs. Knifetop is just a nightmare, one she's woken from and is long past. As everyone filters in and starts grabbing food, Bjorn takes Holly aside. You all right? I will be. Most days it's easier to forget, but it just caught me off guard for some reason this time. I'll be all right, Holly assures him. All right, but if things start feeling off, just tell me. There's no shame in getting the help you need. Bjorn assures her, and she kisses him on the cheek. I love you, even if it's just duty talking. I love you. It's long been more than duty, you know that, Bjorn assures her. I know, I just like to hear it, she says, and he chuckles. Right, I love you too. Now breakfast? He asks, and she nods. The Lyra girls sense that something had come up, and although no one tells them what, they quickly make sure the topics are on the more harmless things, or at least the ones unlikely to upset her. So is it normal for these null events to keep happening? Most would have already cleared up by now, but this one was predicted to be off and on for a few days rather than a few hours, Lil says. So we're still in the clear, and I don't need to see about potentially shooting a hole into a moon, Bjorn says. The fact that I can't tell if you're serious has me very concerned. Solace jokes. I'm just saying, when things get weird, there can be collateral on the scale of a heavenly body, Bjorn says. And when did that happen? I think I would have heard about you or a friend of yours cracking a planet, Solace protests. Well, it was more an abandoned mining colony being used for a madwoman's experiments, Bjorn says. I won't go into details, but it was a mission that ended well with negative casualties. How does that happen? Vera asks. Rescue and recruitment from the rescued, Bjorn says. We got one of our most powerful Axiom adepts out of that, and his bonkers daughters. Bonkers daughters? Granddaughters. A mad cloning incident that went wild. So now we have a doctor who's never been married, who is now also a grandfather, and... Wait, where and why was I bringing up this story? Bjorn asks as his train of thought suddenly derails so hard that the entire table can hear it crash. I don't know. Something about you maybe hitting the planet that's near the Axiom lane? I don't think that it's a problem you can punch, Vera says in an incredulous tone. I don't know, I can punch pretty hard, Bjorn remarks, and Holly flexes her arm and the fur bulges out. The definition can't be seen, but the fact it's nearly tripled in size from the flex and is easily bigger than her head has her considering. I don't know, I don't think I can punch out a planet's gravity, and I'm pretty sure I'm bigger, Holly remarks, and Bjorn flexes in return. Debatable, he remarks as his own arm expands in response. Irma brings out her communicator and takes a picture of him and then her. Nope, according to this, Holly has another centimeter in arm circumference. Even taking the fur into account? Bjorn asks. No one said anything about fur, Holly tells him. It should go without saying. He protests and there is laughter once again. The meal proceeds without any further fumbles, and soon enough everyone is leaving the reinforced area in the arcology. The girls' clubbing clothing is safely in bags, and they're in the much more casual affairs of proper shirts, pants, skirts, and other articles of clothing that aren't simply hanging on for dear life. Which leaves Holly and Bjorn soon waiting outside a hotel door as they hear some bustling around inside. Mother Clatterhooves opens it shortly after with a tired smile. Really, doesn't Axiom just wash it away? Bjorn asks. It's more social exhaustion. I'm nowhere near as outgoing as you or my little girl, Martha says with a tired smile. Still, it's good to know you're both so full of pep. Apparently part of the arcology got hit by a null bombardment from the planet nearby. So I was a little worried. It woke us up, but nothing more, Holly admits. My little Holly. So strong that null is little more than an alarm clock for her. Martha gushes. Mom, Holly protests as the older Carib hugs her. Daughter, Martha gushes back. Now I was promised a bit of a tour, wasn't I? You were. Where do you want to go? Bjorn asks. Well, you talked up those supposed horror worms yesterday. How bad are they really? Is it something you can show? Martha asks. Oh yes, but... Bjorn begins before looking towards Holly. Why are you looking at me? Your mother, your call, he says, as if I wasn't a big girl able to make my own decisions. Martha says in amusement, we can show you, but remember to be behind one of us at all times and stay on the hypercrete platform. I don't want you getting hurt, Holly says, and Martha agrees. Well, this ought to be interesting, Bjorn remarks. Well, a mother ought to know about the biggest danger on the world her daughter is on. Martha replies, now are you going to show me these big bad worms? These nasty creatures that have overwhelmed this world? Within half an hour they're outside and looking out over the tundra wasteland. Bjorn kicks out a small piece of ice onto the tundra. There's the sound of crackling ice and it shifts. He kicks out a stone and there's a sudden maw that snaps out and then retracts. That was quick, Martha remarks. After the shelling the older ones got recently, we only have these tiny grubs for the moment. Of course, that just means well, Bjorn says before dashing out onto the tundra, quickly wheeling around and rushing back. The ground behind him churns and he has to jump hard as the little monster recognizes the pattern enough to try and destabilize the ground ahead of him. Well, they're certainly prevalent, Martha says before frowning. Why is the batch that tried to get ahead of you still churning? Cannibalism, mother. If we had a chain and hook, we can show it really well, Holly remarks, and Bjorn reaches into a pocket and pulls out a large and thick chain with a hook more appropriate for construction work. Oh, thank you. She takes the chain from him and keeps pulling until she has the full thing. It's about 4 body lengths long, and with a flick, she tosses the hook into the churning mass and then gives it a twist a few times until something just below the churned up tundra grabs the chain and starts to pull. She lets it go a few links, then she starts to pull. The pale gray-white skin of the tundra worm glistens in the light and reveals that the worms are as blind as they are absolutely vicious. The viciousness is exemplified as while Holly pulls on the chain, another worm is revealed to be attached to the one hooked on the chain and trying to eat it alive. This second worm spills green gunk, and Holly gives the chain a very violent twirl before tossing it away and looking away from the slaughter of the self-destructive monsters. It's all right, you're not responsible for what these things do, Bjorn says with a hand on her shoulder, even as Martha hugs her. It's green, Holly says before taking a breath and then wrinkling her nose. Let's go back inside. A good idea. Come on, how about your favorite gym? Surely you have a favorite place to grow stronger, Martha asks. Actually, there is something that she's learned to have fun with. It's a bit more geared to another species. But who can say no to a good fun swim in a Lidra-scale swimming pool? Bjorn offers, and Holly nods. She says nothing as Bjorn holds out a hand and the chain floats into his hand and then into his expanded pocket. Why do you keep that thing around anyways? I don't see a chain capable of holding down a small spacecraft as something in a normal soldier's kit. No, but it's a fun toy on better days. Unfortunately, today's not the best one. Bjorn remarks before his communicator goes off, and he quickly pulls it out. Crap, it seems we have another null cascade on the way. They're going to hit within the hour, and all Gravian citizens with delicate axiom constitutions are advised to get to shelters. He reads. Does it say how many more of them there will be? Martha asks. Apparently, the rotation of the planet will soon take us out of the danger zone until the last 6 hours of this. Then there's going to be a 200-year gap until the next one. Bjorn reads out. I see. Well, a nice place to sit until this passes would be best. Right, and Bjorn begins as he checks a few things. Also, Holly, if you're up for it, there can be an appointment with a psychologist after dinner. I'll be fine, Holly says. I just have it on the brain for some reason. It'll pass. It still helps to talk to a professional about it, Bjorn says. I'm okay. If you insist, Bjorn says.